No one knew the Red Pill Expo in 2017 would be such a success, so it's back in 2018.
Hello everybody, I am Cyrus Hojadi. I am live here at the Hilton Alara Hilton Grands Vacations Hotel here in Las Vegas. So, a lot of you guys have heard about the recent Red Pill Expo that's taking place in the state of Washington. And I just wanted to make some points about that Red Pill Expo. And overall, I have, in a lot of things in society and about a lot of people, I have a mixed view about this so-called expo. And before I want to go on, there's a lot of people I'm going to talk about and cover in the next several minutes. So let's first of all, let's talk about, is it really a Red Pill Expo? Well, in some ways it is, in some ways it's not. And the reason it's not, because some of the people that are there are really just, depending on how you look at it, they're really just establishment, believe it or not. And I'm going to get to these people later on. So let's start with the so-called anti-sustainable development, anti-Agenda 21, smart growth crap. Now, there's a lot of people who are in that expo right now, and I can go on. Mr. Tom DeWeese. And I've talked about this so-called crowd several years ago, like another individual, Raza Corey, who resides in the Bay Area in San Francisco, Santa Rosa, and as well as other people like Debbie Basse-Galupi, Dan Happel, Lord Moncton, as well as, of course, the guy I know pretty well, Gary Gileno.
They are going after our lifestyle. They are going after our freedom of movement. They are going after our freedom to travel. They are going after our freedom of mobility. They don't like that I can get into my car, turn the key, and drive anywhere I want in this entire country. What they would prefer is that I get on a government-run service like a bus or a train where they determine if I even get on to begin with, and then they take me on their designated route.
Where will this study take us? We think, to begin with, it's going to be in part thinking about a new vision. So you've been building the infrastructure. What is it we need in addition to that? So the vision of mobility as a service, the notion that this interconnected tissue that Selena's begun to describe in its concrete and precise ways is partly this mobility as a service idea.
Brown, one of the most outspoken elected officials in the U.S. about the need for policies to combat climate change, would be replicating similar moves by China, France, and the UK.
And they have been talking a lot about Agenda 21, smart growth, how basically, the government is going to take your property and they're going to stack you up in apartments and make you take transit no matter what. And first of all, I just have to be very, very clear. I am not in full support of smart growth. I've been a large critic of smart growth, and I can just show you recent videos to the Clark County Commission, City of Las Vegas, City of Henderson about my concerns about smart growth. But I have a different view of smart growth and urban planning than people like Gary Gileno. You see, the problem with Gary Gileno and Tom DeWeese, they believe that somehow that the current system that's been going on for the last 80 years, sprawl, this idea that you have suburbs, sprawl, land use segregation, everything needs a car wherever you need to go. That system is freedom. That system is progress. That system is what truly the free market brings in. And that's really not true. That system is heavily subsidized, it's heavily regulated, and there's a lot of zoning and red tape that went into building it. And of course, there was a lot of corruption. If you look at the streetcar scandals, the interstate highway system, the big box retailers, a lot of special interest groups that benefit from the current system. So yes, in some cases, it does provide opportunities, suburbs. See, the problem with Gary Gileno and Tom DeWeese is that they never really exposed the problems with suburbia. And I've debated this with Gary Gileno about a year or two ago on this issue. So this is one of the issues. And then, again, they can criticize smart growth. They can explain, well, smart growth has flaws. And I get it. It has flaws. And they are right. Gary Gileno makes a great point. I have approached and confronted guys like Hassan of Skag about the things that he's doing. But here's where they're missing the point. There is a growing Americans that want transit, high-density, mixed-use development. There is a growing Americans and around the world that want walkable environments. But the problem is how they're doing it is the issue. The way they're implementing. It's kind of like saying, well, you have banana cream pies and not a lot of people are serving banana cream pies. Well, the reason that people are not eating the banana cream pie, it's maybe because how you decorate it. That's how it works. See, this is the thing. So they're not telling you the whole enchilada of the problem. So yes, smart growth does some things with HUD grants and slow and inefficient light rail systems and not so attractive stack and pack units, and I understand. But then again, there's a lot of Americans that do want it. And you talk about Gary Gileno and along with Tressie Capps, how they're building high-rise apartments in downtown LA and they're going to stack them up. But again, there is a market demand for them. Why are they selling them at a premium? And they don't understand. They don't tell you probably that it is hard to build high-density housing. The fact is that even the California legislature admitted that it's very difficult to build high density because of parking subsidies, because of zoning laws, because of a lot of different things. And this is one of the things that you have to understand. So essentially, if they really wanted high density, by now you would have seen hundreds of skyscrapers all over Los Angeles, but you're not. It's tough to build high density, as the same is in San Francisco, Seattle, with height restrictions and so forth. And this idea that they want to just grab us out of our homes and stack us in apartments, well, why are they still building single-family homes? Why do we still have the auto industry? Why are they still spreading out in the cities? How do you explain all that? You see, again, I'm not going to deny that SCAG is a problematic regional agency. But still, there are growing numbers of people that want to live in high-density environments. And there's a lot of inefficiencies with suburbs and sprawl.
80% of everything ever built in North America has been built in the last 50 years. And most of it is brutal, depressing, ugly, unhealthy, and spiritually degrading. The Jive Plastic commuter tract home wastelands, the Potemkin Village shopping plazas with their vast parking lagoons, the gourmet mansardic junk food joints, the whole agoraphobia-inducing, toxic, brutal spectacle that politicians like to call growth.
The system that you, Tressie Capps, and all you guys seem to promote. I mean, I've lived in Rancho Cucamonga for 13 years. I wasn't very happy about this idea of having to have a car for every single trip that you do outside of the house. I think it's very problematic. But of course, my alternative is not living in the inner cities. My alternative is to return back to some of the planning proposals that we did in the 1920s and before.
At first glance, it looks like a snapshot of an old-fashioned city. A mix of houses, schools, shops, and cafes, all within an easy stroll.
Well, Main Street's the heart of the community. It's where the neighbors hang out. There's a family that lives upstairs, a Greek family, that runs the restaurant.
I wasn't very happy about this idea of having to have a car for every single trip that you do outside of the house. I think it's very problematic. But of course, my alternative is not living in the inner cities. My alternative is to return back to some of the planning proposals that we did in the 1920s and before. See, you guys have to start waking up and hearing truths from other sides. Because channels like Gary Gileno, and I appreciate him for all the work that we've done together. You know, how he filmed me, how I got sucker punched at Cudahy. But again, you have to hear truths from other sides. And you have to understand that not everybody who's behind the smart growth and new urbanism crowd is a tyrant. There are people who like the old cities. They like the walkable, old-fashioned environments. They want to bring back traditional urbanism, the beautiful architecture. This is the thing that Tom DeWeese and all these guys are not telling you. So there is a bright side to this movement. Now, am I part of the smart growth movement? No. And I'll tell you about my solutions later on. And so then you talk about other issues, how green energy is problematic. Well, hey, I understand that Solyndra, and there was a lot of solar energy scams, and Tesla was subsidized. But at the same time, I want cost-effective green energy. And I know the establishment is trying to hijack green energy just like they're doing with efficient urban planning so that they can perpetuate the fossil fuel carbon status quo. Okay? Now, am I a believer in man-made climate change? I'm not a scientist, but I don't want carbon taxes. I'll tell you for a fact. At the same time, I do want green energy that's cost effective. And I have a good feeling that the establishment is trying to basically suppress the technologies so that we have to be enslaved to $3 to $4 gallon of gas. Okay? You see, you talk about how sprawls and suburbs are freedom. Not really. It kind of makes you enslaved to cars, to car registration, insurance, accidents, ticketing, all these other things, high gas prices. And we've seen this in the 1970s. So cars and suburbs are not as free as we were led to believe. This is one of the things that you have to really understand. And, you talk about how Gary Gileno, that the California government is a left-wing radical agenda. Well, it depends on how you look at it, because when you think about it, Jerry Brown and Kevin De Leon, they're not like the New Deal leftist, progressive leftists, or Democrats, how you want to talk about it. They're not going after Wall Street, the large corporations. They're not imposing a maximum wage on CEOs. You have to understand, it's really the leftist agenda has been hijacked to shift away from corporate tyranny from the progressive area to focus on supporting lawbreakers of our immigration laws, transgenderism, feminism, all this other nonsense. Useless government programs, the list goes on. Public sector employee pensions. That's what the Democrats have become. But the Democratic Party is not what it used to be. This is why, as a matter of fact, why you're seeing a division in the Democratic Party.
Because our people are not chaotic. You guys need to calm down and understand.
Now, of course, legal immigration also has problems. You see, we bring in 1 million people a year, plus the chain migration. What you guys need to be advocating for is a reduction of legal entries into the United States. You guys need to be talking more about this stuff. We have too many people here in Las Vegas. What are we benefiting from all this immigration? We're just getting foreign-born people who are doing jobs that Americans can do, like blackjack dealing, front counter desk, a lot of different positions, food serving. These are jobs that young people, myself, can do. So we need to reduce the number of green cards. And by the way, it's not diverse, because here in many Las Vegas casinos, you have like 70% of the blackjack dealers that are Asian. So far, so much as in diversity. So there are some things that when you talk about immigration is not as far-reaching as I hoped it to be. Now, let's get into other individuals like Edward Griffin. Now, Edward Griffin talks a lot about the Federal Reserve, and I agree it's a problem. It's one of the main causes of our overvalued housing market, the low interest rates. It was the main cause of the crash 10 years ago. And of course, believe it or not, Yes, Alan Greenspan, all these people, you know, they went in Jekyll Island. They've done a lot of horrible things to our country. But of course, the Federal Reserve is not just the problem. Edward Griffin, as far as I know, he doesn't talk about that the gutting of Glass-Steagall was also the main cause of the financial crisis. And there were banks that lobbied in the 1990s that wanted to deregulate that law, which was passed and signed by Bill Clinton, believe it or not. This is why a lot of people supported Bernie Sanders, that caused the 2008 crisis. So Edward Griffin, he's not telling you the whole enchilada of the problem. And then, of course, Edward Griffin doesn't talk about who were the people that were really behind the Federal Reserve, which is another person I want to bring up. Her name is Cynthia McKinney. Now, Cynthia McKinney is a individual who's been very critical of pro-Israel, Zionism, Jews. So I don't know.
Not allowed to do that because I did not toe the line on U.S. policy for Israel.
What line is that they wanted? Were you told directly that you had to toe a line, or explain that to me?
Well, every candidate for Congress at that time had a pledge. They were given a pledge to sign. And I was new on the scene. And so the pledge had Jerusalem as the capital city, the military superiority of Israel.
American Congress people have to sign this pledge.
Yes, you sign the pledge. If you don't sign the pledge, you don't get money. So, for example, it was almost like water torture for me. My parents observed this. I would get a call, and the person on the other end of the phone would say, I want to do a fundraiser for you. And then we would get into the planning. I would get really excited because, of course, you have to have money in order to run a campaign. And then 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the planning, they would say, did you sign the pledge? And then I would say, no, I didn't sign the pledge. And then my fundraiser would go kaput.
So, I just want to get into this pledge a little bit more. So this is basically something that is mandatory, that every congressperson has to sign, saying that, Jerusalem, you said, is the capital of Israel, and what else?
You make a commitment that you will vote to support the military superiority of Israel, that the economic assistance that Israel wants, that you would vote to provide that.
This isn't a question for the Congress people serving, that they are representing, or they're supposed to be representing, the people of the United States, not a foreign country, and yet they have to pledge allegiance to a foreign state.
That's what
no one questions this.
That's what I was asked to do. And I made it public. This probably nobody had said anything about it, but I made it public, and then, the excuse was, those were just overzealous advocates for Israel. So then the tactic changed, and but this is what is done for 535 members of the United States Congress. 100 senators, 435 members of the House of Representatives have to now write a paragraph, which basically says the same thing. So it's not a pledge, but it's a paragraph, and you post it, and, there are these forums you have to go to at the synagogues or whatever. And then, if you don't perform appropriately, then you don't get money to run your campaign. The problem is that it requires an awful lot of money to run a campaign. And whether it's a woman's organization, an environmental organization, people can read about this on the internet if they're interested. If you go to thomas.loc.gov, that is the official United States Congress website. And if you put in the name Gus Savage, because Gus Savage was a black member of Congress who was targeted by the pro-Israel lobby. And he had the foresight to use his position as an incumbent in the House of Representatives to put his experience on the congressional record for the entire existence of the United States Congress now, people will be able to access his experience. And what he wrote was that it was the Garden Club of New Jersey that gave his opponent $5,000. But it wasn't really the Garden Club of New Jersey. It was the activists who were associated with AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee.
Wow. Unbelievable, but we're almost out of time, so I just want to get into a little bit of your personal experience now and what you're planning.
You know, I just want to ask Mr. Edward Griffin, do you ever talk about the claim that the Zionists are behind the Federal Reserve? Why are you bringing somebody like Cynthia McKinney? Because it seems like some of you people are pro-Israel and she's not. How do you address the fact that the Israel lobby is very strong in our society? Now, do I personally believe that Israel is full control of our total global society? It's hard to say. Now, sure, they do have power. I'm not going to deny that. Because on the other hand, the problem with Cynthia McKinney is that as far as I know, she doesn't talk about the other said group of people that have lots of power, which is the Jesuits, the Vatican, the Pope. And a lot of people can argue that Jerry Brown and a lot of these people are well connected. The Club of Rome, the Green Agenda, to this whole global paradigm. See, this is the thing. A lot of these people, they're not telling you the whole enchilada of the problem. It doesn't seem like it's a true Red Pill Expo as I thought it would be. Okay? And again, I'm not here to bash or criticize or downgrade anybody. I have a lot of respect for Gary Gileno, what he's done. I just think that some of the things that he's revealing in his videos, the audience does not know the whole enchilada of the problem. And that's why you need to subscribe to YouTube channels like myself to really get an idea of what's going on. And by the way, speaking about the Jesuits, the Vatican, the Zionists, I try not to get into it. You know, a lot of these things, sometimes they've been debunked. Like a lot of these things that sound like conspiracies and so forth. But I'm just aware of it because I like to have an open mind, believe it or not. So this is some of the individuals I've got across. And lastly, before I go, this is the person that's in the expo that I think he's very controversial. And because of this person, this is why I'm not too comfortable with Donald Trump. By the way, I saw him a few days ago here in Las Vegas at the South Point Hotel. And this individual, he has done books with Donald Trump, and he's also done books with the gold pumper, who's been in a lot of controversies, Mike Maloney. And I have done videos of him earlier before talking about how these people are charlatans. These are salespeople. These are basically frauds, con men, that they are lying to you. They're misleading the public to scare people, fear-mongering, to sell and promote commodities, particularly gold and silver. And many of you have listened to the Mark Fabers, the Peter Schiffs of the world, the Robert Kiyosakis, the Mike Maloneys. You bought gold in 2011 and 12, and you lost your you-know-what. And look at it now. It's lower than it was from its all-time high at $1,900 an ounce. And look at the stock market. The NASDAQ a few days ago hit all-time highs. And I have made a lot of videos about the NASDAQ and about the stock market. Of course, it's soon due for a major correction in a bear market, no question about it. And of course, they may use it as an opportunity to look good again. But these people, the Kiyosakis, have a lousy track record. This is a man who's been accused of having seminars for a few hours, charging them $500, ripping them off, and, well, a lot of people were pissed.
Coming to a town near you.
I think you guys are here because you want to be millionaire by next Friday.
We go inside a workshop on how to get rich.
I know my stuff so much that it's scaring the shit out of you guys.
Or is it how to get ripped off?
I'm very angry. I've never seen anything like this.
Did you learn to be rich? Why does this guy get kicked out?
I paid $500. I'm done.
And the man behind it all?
if you're happy to take their money, you should be happy to answer some of their concerns.
The guru they call Rich Dad.
Well, I don't
That's
mean
not
for you
fair.
to feel
Okay,
that
that's
you're
not
under
fair.
attack. I'm
No,
just
no,
looking
that's
for
not
answers.
fairness.
And this is pretty sad that they're going after these people who are struggling in this economy, making them naive and gullible and falling into this trap. So it doesn't really sound like as red pilling as I hoped it to be. Now, make no mistake. Yes, Robert Kiyosaki doesn't have a good track record. In 2011, in the Peter Schiff interview, he talked about how I'm not investing in stocks, it's gambling.
Well, that's what I said earlier in the program. I don't do stock trading. I don't flip houses.
Yeah, well,
that's what people think investing is, and that's gambling.
Well, I agree that if you're just buying stocks because you think they're going to go up, you're gambling. But if you're buying them because they have good value and you're collecting dividends, you're making.
Yeah, and the stock market keeps hitting all-time highs every few months or so. Whatever happened to the dollar crashing and the dollar becoming worthless fiat currency? Whatever happened? So this is the thing. When you look at these events, you have to really know their track records, who they are, and hear sides from the other story. So this is one of the things. Now, Robert Kiyosaki, you make, although I will give you credit, great points. Again, I'm not looking everything glass half empty. You made amazing points that when you go to school, you don't learn much about money. You have to basically have assets, cut your expenses, get out of debt. Now, of course, I don't know if your rich dad ever existed, and I've heard you've been in bankruptcy in 1985, but still you make a good point, because you don't want to be in the rat race. This idea of going to school, going to college, getting in debt, getting in 401ks, working for 30 years, relying on Social Security and pensions. Yeah, that system has a lot of inefficiencies, and it's in a way a trap. But a lot of your advice, a lot of your tips have not been helpful. But me, on the other hand, I'm 25 years old. I've been investing in the stock market, and I've been making a killing. Okay? And I know that my financial independence is coming sooner. It's probably right here. And I'm pretty soon going to start my own company. I've got the track record. I'm going to buy land 30 miles south of the Las Vegas Strip, build exciting master plan neighborhoods, which is to say that Gary Gileno, the people like Tom DeWeese, and all these other people out there, or even the smart growth of the new urbanism, because I'm critical of both sides, they really don't have a solution that works for everybody, that's flexible for lots of people. That's the thing. Gary Gileno doesn't create his own neighborhood, but I do. I have plans. So if you want real urban planning and transportation, land use, architectural solutions, then I suggest you spread the word about the Cyrus planning movement, about my projects in Clark County, and we can get rocking and rolling. We can build this exciting thing in the middle of the desert and shine all over the world, because that's what we're really famous about here in the Las Vegas area. So, that's all I got to tell you. Again, I have a lot of respect for a lot of people that attended, but then again, just because it has a nice name to the event does not mean that you have to look for truths from other sides. I believe my video has been a lot more red pilling than going to the Red Pill Expo, which, believe it or not, costs quite a bit of money. All right, take care.